Hello students and welcome back. This is the discussion of the questions of the second chapter of David Copperfield. And the chapter was called My Life Begins to Change. So, if we just a quick revision, in this chapter we were talking about how David saw after he was born, David saw that his mother was beginning to change. She returned one day with a man to their house, and this man had a black hair, and she was very happy. But David didn't like this man. Why? Because he felt that this man is taking his mother's attention. So David didn't like that. And then David woke up at night and found that Clara and Peggotty were arguing about this gentleman who he was a stranger at the time for David. And Peggotty was warning Clara of marrying this man or of her having a relationship with this man. David was so young at the time and he didn't understand what they were talking about. Then Peggotty asked David if he would like to come with her or travel with her to Yarmouth. Why? She wanted him to go there and to see her family and to play and see the sea, the boats and ships and fishermen. David, of course, because he was a little child, he was excited to see all these new things. But in reality, Peggotty wanted to ease the news for David or wanted to hide the truth from David that his mother was going to marry Mr. Murdstone. And David saw the first or the early change in his mother when he was leaving for Yarmouth and saw that Mr. Murdstone started controlling Clara or his mother and stopped her from showing affection to David. David didn't understand why the man is doing so, but we will see later that Mr. Murdstone was a cruel man and he used this as a way to control the house and control Clara. Now, let's start our questions. The first question is saying, David remembered the first things from his earliest childhood. Explain. He's asking here about what did David remember when he was a child. What is the first things that comes to his memory when he was a child? Okay, we can say that the earliest memory David was in his mind was always thinking about his mother, Clara. She has a pretty hair, a young face, and when he thinks about Peggotty, the servant or the family's friend, he always thinks about how Peggotty had dark eyes and rich cheeks and arms, and even if he and his mother were afraid sometimes of Peggotty because she was had a stronger personality than his mother, but she was a friend and she wanted to help them all the time. The second question. First impression is the last impression. This is an idiom or a saying we always say in English. First impression is last impression. So if I treated you in the right way, you would take an impression of me that Mr. Matez is a good man. But if I treated you in a bad way, you will take the first impression of me that I'm a bad man. This impression is very hard to change. I cannot change the first impression you took about me. So first impression is last impression. It stays for a long time and it's very hard to change the first impression you take or the first impression you decide upon someone. How far is this idiom true in relation to David's feeling toward Edward Murdstone? So when David saw Mr. Murdstone, what was his first impression about this man? If you remember, when Clara came back one day with Mr. Murdstone, though she was very happy, David didn't like the man and he didn't like his deep voice. Why? Because he was jealous of Mr. Murdstone, because he was touching Clara, he was taking a lot of her attention. So David saw that this man is coming to divide or to stop David and Clara from being a boy and his mother. He was coming to stop this relationship. Okay. Also, you can say that you can say also or mention the part when Mr. Murdstone came to stand beside Clara while David was going to Yarmouth. In this part, you can surely see that Mr. Murdstone stopped Clara from showing affection to David, and David didn't understand why Mr. Murdstone was doing so. So these two things can explain to you why David hated or why David took a bad impression about Mr. Murdstone. Master Davy, would you like to come with me and spend a couple of weeks? Who said this? Comment. Who said this? Of course it was Peggotty. Peggotty said these words to David. Why? Peggotty wanted to help David. She didn't want David to see what was going inside the house because he was a small child. She wanted to protect him. So she invited him to go to her brother's house in Yarmouth for a couple of weeks. And she lured him, or she attracted him to this visit, telling him that there is a sea, boats, ships, fishermen, beach, and ham to play with. All these things for a young child, they are gonna attract him and excite him to go there. So she did this to ease the news for David about Clara's marriage to Mr. Murdstone. Thank you. Thank you guys, and I hope you understand this discussion, or you took good notes of this discussion. You're gonna use this discussion to write your answers, and we're gonna correct them later. Thank you guys. Bye bye.